for the rest. So we'll keep them as long as we can.
We're live on YouTube.
We're live. Are we recording yet? I don't see the little red dot quite yet. There it is.
Okay, let's go. We've got a big agenda today. My name is Tracy Metzger and I'm chair of the IDA. I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting today, January 13th. It's just about 12:25 p.m. As typical, the minutes of our previous meeting have been distributed and unless there's any corrections or comments, I'd like a motion to accept.
So moved.
Darius, a second, please.
Second.
Secondly, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Okay, we'll move forward with the chief financial report. Mark?
Thanks, Tracy. So for what you have in front of you is the December 31st financial snapshot as it looks at right now. For the fourth quarter, total revenues were about 60,000, well under budget. Expenses were 282, budgeted 278. So they were pretty much right around budget. So for the fourth quarter, the agency did lose 222,000. Just to note, there are a few invoices that still need to come in. So that will, especially the Arbor Hill Community Center. So that will change slightly when you see the year-end financial statements when they're presented in March. Right now, on the revenue side, year to date, 412 versus a budgeted of 1.3 million. As you did see, COVID did have a little bit of an impact on the agency's revenues for 2020. Total expenses 921 versus 1.1 million. So we were actually under budget on expenses. So with that, right now, the agency was showing a deficit of about $500,000 versus a budgeted positive 222,000.
Thank you, Mark. Well, hopefully our first 6 months of 2021 will change that picture considerably. Any questions? Okay. With that, we're going to move on to unfinished business. It's the Clinton Avenue Apartments LLC home leasing resolutions. I'm going to recuse myself and Tom is going to take over this piece. Thank you.
Shall I move you to the waiting room, Tracy?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Oh, Tom, you're muted.
Thank you very much. So would like to call on Andy Corcione to give an overview of the home leasing project.
Sure. Thank you, Tom. For the record, we have the project applicant is in attendance here that can answer any questions. There did seem to be some interest in taking a look at the map that was brought up during the public hearing, which was just held. So I'd like to run through our staff project summary and analysis, and we should hopefully be set up in order to enable the applicant to share their screen in that map. The project proposes to revitalize 6 properties located on Clinton Ave in Arbor Hill. The proposed project includes the historic preservation of 4 vacant row homes and the adaptive reuse of a long vacant former school building, in addition to the new construction of a 3-story mixed-use building for a total of 61 residential affordable housing units. And additionally, there will be 12,000 square feet of commercial space dedicated to ACEs. Highlighting the revenue gain to the taxing jurisdictions, the status quo taxes on an annual basis, approximately $31,050. The projected pilot payment impacts 1.6 million for a net benefit of 1.6 million. The property value increase, the current value of all parcels under consideration is 593,800. The anticipated future value is 3.79 million for a net increase of just under $3.2 million. For comparative purposes, we did score this project through our framework analyses. However, it was analyzed outside of that framework analysis, being an affordable housing project and also being that there was a deviation requested. And again, due to the special nature of the request and the fact that it does involve affordable housing component, we do have a third-party consultant's report. I will go into the framework scoring in more detail in a bit, but running through our staff summary, highlighting the employment impact analysis that was conducted by CDRPC via the InPlan platform, the temporary construction impact, inclusive of the direct, indirect, and induced effects, total 28.1 million. And the permanent operations impact, again, inclusive of direct, indirect, and induced effect, total 1.75 million. This project is projected to create 17 permanent jobs, and it's projected to create 150 construction jobs. Touching briefly on the third-party review, the third party did determine that the assumptions included within the application, in addition to the requested assistance, were within reasonable parameters. An executive summary of that third-party consultant report was provided to the public and to the board as part of these materials, with the more lengthy full report also disseminated to the board members only prior to this meeting. Quickly running through the framework score. Again, this is for comparative purposes only. The project receives 1 point for being in a distressed census tract, 1 point for being located in a high vacancy census tract, 1 point for being located within the boundaries of a neighborhood plan, 1 point for being an identified catalyst site, 1 point for containing tax exempt vacant properties that are being engaged, 1 point for having a historic preservation component, and 1 point for being a community catalyst, as this project supports multiple initiatives in the Albany 2030 plan. Identified growth area, the project received 1 point for it being a conversion to residential. And under the employment section, 1 point for creating approximately 17 full-time jobs, and 2 points for creating approximately 150 projected construction jobs. And rounding that out, this project receives 3 points for a total investment value exceeding 22 million. And of note, while there are no points scored under these two community commitment categories, based on the nature of the financing and the entities involved, the project does intend to include MWBE participation during construction and also EEO workforce utilization. With that, Tom, I'll turn it back over to yourself and
Thank you.
committee members for any questions.
Thank you. And before we get into a discussion, I know that there was an offer by the applicant to put up a map of the sites. Are we able to show that on the screen?
Tom, can you provide me with the name of the person who will be sharing their screen?
Sure. It's it's Adam Driscoll at Home Leasing. I think on Zoom it says Home Leasing Development.
Yep.
And while Adam's pulling that up, I would note that we did just have a public hearing. We held it just prior to this meeting. There were no members of the public in attendance to speak at that meeting, and we did not receive any public comment via written comment, as we allow for prior to the public hearing as well. So just of note for the committee.
Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I technically challenged sometimes. So the red stars are the location of the property. So this is the vacant parcel 236, 303, 307 up here. And as we make our way down Clinton Avenue, 163 located right here, 133 and 78.
Thank you, Adam. Is there any discussion by the committee
I
on
do have
this?
a question. Could you show on the map where the new construction is taking place?
Yep. Just want to make sure, can everybody see it again?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, yep. So this right here, this vacant parcel is 236 Clinton. And this is 255 Orange Street where ACES is currently operating, and this would be the new construction.
It's on Clinton.
Yes. Yep.
Correct.
And the ACES facility, what happens with that?
The new facility would be
No, the one that exists now.
the one that exists now. It's expanding with our
Into the park,
pardon?
into the parking lot.
Into our building. So their new commercial space is expansion from their existing operations into 55 Orange Street at the moment. So they're staying as is, and then just their new commercial space will be on Clinton with us. And it's going to be connected too. There's actually a condition covered ramp from their old building to our new building at the back.
And the new building will be incubator buildings or will be residential?
Both. The new building will
The old building.
pardon?
The old building will stay the same?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right.
And those
Can you
site
put us
plans
on the
are
map
included.
again? Can you quickly show us on the map how that connector space is going to work?
Yep.
You don't
Sure.
look
And
contiguous.
You do have in your packets the site plan for the project, whether it was in this packet or previous. You do have some floor plans that show the new construction and as well as how that connects into the ACES space. If you'd like to see additional detail for that.
Yep. And then can you see my arrow here?
Yes.
So there'll be a connector from the building here that would go to the new building ground level. And this will be roughly a good portion of the new ACES space right here.
Okay.
Yep. So it'll be a direct connect.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great. Is there any discussion on this application?
Not for me. I like it.
Great. So then I believe that the next item would just be a possible negative or positive recommendation for the approving resolutions.
I'll move it with a positive recommendation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Sorry, that came in as a lag. So
Yeah.
can we just take that
Yeah.
take that vote once more? All in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. And I did see Lloyd say aye, despite being muted. So we saw him. He's raising his hand. Any opposed to the matter on the table? Okay, seeing none. The resolution carries unanimously with the recusal from Tracy Metzger, who's not in the room.
Great. And we'll bring Tracy back in.
Okay. As we are waiting for Tracy to join us, hi Tracy. We're going to move into new business, but Tracy has asked if I do just a very quick intro to our new business section. We have a significant number of new business items here, and we also have a significant number of new faces around our Zoom as well. So first and foremost, I'd like to say welcome to Tony Gotti, who is joining us for his first official meeting today, although he's been with us a couple of pre-meetings before. Thank you for joining us for this.
Thank you. Happy to be in 2021 and finally able to officially be on screen. So thank you.
Welcome, Tony.
Thank you, Tracy.
Great.
Hello,
And
everyone. Hey, Jeff.
so as a refresher for us all, because it's been some time since we've had sort of purely new projects in front of us, and we do have a number of them here, just a quick overview of the typical IDA process. We do a lot of work with any applicant that comes through prior to that project hitting the Finance Committee for an application. So Andy does an amazing job going back and forth with the applicant, getting everything organized, making sure we've got answers to all of the preliminary questions so that you have a full package in front of you for your initial review. We do project introduction at the Finance Committee, and you will see a presentation or hear a presentation from the applicants on their project, as well as an overview summary from staff. Following the Finance Committee introduction, what we'll do is go back to the applicant with any questions that the Finance Committee or other board members may have. We'll do staff analysis on the project as well to ensure that we have everything that we need to provide the board with a solid cost-benefit analysis for the project, which we do on each of them. We'll also, depending on whether the project asks for a deviation from our UTEP, most of our projects do ask for deviations from our UTEP, our Uniform Tax Exemption Policy. And then also if they deviate from the standard exemptions that we typically offer through our project evaluation and assistance summary, that will dictate how we handle sort of a third-party additional analysis as a check and balance against staff analysis for each of the projects. We'll start to do that in between the first Finance Committee meeting and then any follow-up Finance Committee meeting. That second Finance Committee would typically be where we allow for a public hearing to move forward. That would weigh into the committee and board's analysis of any project. We like to do some of the analysis up front so that we give the public the benefit of having that additional analysis over top prior to the public really forming their full opinion of any project. So when the board is satisfied with the level of analysis done, with the public comment being heard, the board is able to move forward with the Finance Committee would recommend a project either with no recommendation to the board or with the recommendation to approve or deny the project to the board. And then that would be done as a group. That process typically takes about 3 months. It could take longer if there are additional questions from the Finance Committee or the board, or if we find things through analysis that we need to sort of get more information on and dive deeper into. That final approval or denial doesn't end our relationship with the applicant there. For better or worse, we are monitoring that project consistently throughout the term of any assistance granted by the agency, and we will report on that project should it be approved every year. In addition to reporting to the board, we also report to the PARA system, the Public Authorities Reporting System at the state, and you get to see those reports annually as well. So just a quick overview of where we are. We are at step one, essentially, with the next 3 applicants that are up today and in front of us. So would start with introductions by Andy.
Thank you, Sarah. Andy, our first project is the Lofts at Pine Hills.
Yes, thank you. As Sarah alluded to, I will give a very brief introduction. I will turn the floor over to the project applicant, who in all 3 of these introductory instances I see they are with us today. The first project is a 97-unit mixed-use residential project, a new construction at 237 Western Ave in Pine Hills. And with that, I will turn the floor over to John Wyatt and Pat Rafferty.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Ken.
Yes.
Great. Hi, my name is Pat Rafferty. I'd like to just thank the City of Albany IDA here for listening to us today and consideration for our financial assistance associated with this project. I have Pierre with us as well if there's any questions afterwards, but I'd like to just give a quick spiel on what we got going on here. Our redevelopment project consists of 6 multifamily houses on Quail Street with 2 multifamily units also on Western Avenue, and then a barn and multiple garages within that inner portion of the block between Quail Street and Ontario Street and Western Avenue and State Street. Collectively, this property group consists of 27 rental units currently, with 3 of those existing in a Red X building right now, and other multiple units on the Quail Street property is not in rentable condition. The new facility will consist of 97 market rate multifamily units, as Andy mentioned, with roughly 3,000 square foot of commercials, with two 3,000 square foot commercial spaces. 5 of the units will meet the affordable housing level for Albany. The facility will have many modern built amenities, such as the bike storage, fitness center, indoor and outdoor social common spaces, dog park, secured parking, and on-site security and management. We've been in conversation with multiple potential renters for the commercial spaces and believe these spaces will be used for a cafe and small retail store. The proposed redevelopment is located in the MUFM mixed-use form-based Midtown District, rezoned June 2017. The purpose of this district is to create a cohesive and mutually supportive mixed-use neighborhood around the University of Albany downtown campus, to improve the appearance of that area, to ensure a vibrant atmosphere for students and residents alike, and to protect residential uses surrounding the downtown campus from potential adverse impacts of a large and growing university. We believe this project fits perfectly to work towards accomplishing those goals. Hang on here, I gotta scroll. The vision behind this project came from me, about 15 plus years in the landlord business in that Pine Hills neighborhood. My company, PHJ LLC, has owned properties in Pine Hills throughout that area: Myrtle, Ontario, Hudson, Western, Quail, West Washington. I've also managed other properties through that area as well. Through PHJ's efforts to focus on customer service and timely maintenance and management, PHJ kept a 10-year stretch of 100% occupancy, with our maximum tenant base at approximately 170 people. Over the course of those years, it was clear to me that this area would greatly benefit from a project specifically like this one. From the onset of this project, we've engaged planning department and other city entities, the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association, current tenants, and our neighbors, with hopes to bring a project to this area that would be well received. We have included a letter of support from the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association, and we verbally received support from other nearby businesses. I'd like to bring your attention to a PowerPoint presentation. It starts with a request. See if I can share the screen. Here we go. Big deal for me.
We're all learning the new technology.
All right, let's see here. If I can manage this. All right, so here we go. It shows the description. This project is a redevelopment project consisting of the demolition of multiple existing structures totaling approximately 22,100 square foot, with new construction being a 5-story, 117,160 square foot structure with 97 dwelling units, 6,000 square foot of commercial space, and 102 off-street parking spaces. Project is seeking assistance from the IDA via sales tax, mortgage recording, and the pilot consistent with the guidelines set by the IDA for projects of this nature. Moving forward here, this is just a picture back in the summer on Quail Street of the current. This is the 6 houses, on the far right, the blue one, to the far left, green one, 6 down. Those are the that's the Quail Street houses looking to be demolished. And these are the 2 on Western. Far back behind the one on the right, you can see a tan building back there. That's also part of this. That's 694 State Street rear. It's just, that's what's considered the barn. Okay. You could get a little view of that from up here. If you could see my mouse, this is an overview looking north, and that's that barn. If you could see the mouse, and these are the garages. Here's the houses on Western, and then over here in this stretch is the Quail Street. Next one is just the same thing, reverse view, again with the barn being now here, and that's Western back there. Quail Street's kind of covered by the trees. This is the project superimposed in the same space now back to north, the Quail Street side on the right, lower right here, and that's the stretch on the face of Quail, and the stretch over here on the face of Western. Coming back, you see some green roofs and some rooftop social areas. Reverse view again, now looking the other direction. This is the back. You can see the parking lot, and there's parking under the building as well. Being State Street here in the lower left corner. There's also well, green roofs on that upper roof there. We can, moving on. This is basically a shot from Western and Quail, the corner intersection, looking down Quail Street. Kind of tough to see, but these are the houses right here in this stretch, starting with the green, and the next slide shows the superimposed project. The next one here, same thing on Western. Down here is the two houses. Am I going too fast?
No.
And there's the superimposed project again. A couple more here. We just have a full frontal on Quail Street. Giving you an idea of what it's going to kind of look like there. And here we go on Western Avenue. The left and right, the white blocks, that's just blocked out current housing. And the shading in the back is just parts of the building that aren't near the street. That's it right there. I appreciate your time. Turn it over to you guys, and hopefully I can answer any questions you may have. Back to you, Andy.
Thank you. How long have you owned these properties?
I have owned these properties. I started with Western Avenue, and those properties and the large lot behind it were all together with the State Street rear. So I bought that probably 4 years ago and then started looking at building an apartment down in that area where the garages were. Couldn't quite get what I wanted, couldn't fit it. So I was trying to buy some land in the back behind Quail Street and wasn't getting success. So I had to buy the houses to get it, which in the long run, I can see the benefits of that for the project and the street itself. So it started a little smaller and just kind of grew. So I own this Quail Street houses for probably a year and a half now, in total.
I see. Thank you.
You're welcome. Trying to figure out how to stop sharing here. All right, there we go.
Nice job.
Well, thank you. I'm definitely green at that. I've been on many Zoom calls, but not sharing my screen.
Does anyone else have questions at this time?
I just had one question about the current tenant. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go on.
I just had one question about the current tenants and what the plans are for those individuals, and are they being displaced? And if you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, there currently is no current tenants, and actually there hasn't been any current tenants now for over a year. This project stalled on me a little bit for a while. Back last year in late spring, early summer, when all the leases were expiring, did not renew leases. There was an opportunity there to vacate. It was obviously premature, but currently nobody's being displaced.
Lloyd?
Yeah, my question was in the construction aspect and also in the development part, what MWBE and EEO requirements are you going to follow?
With the MWBE, the 20% awarded contracts, we're going to commit to the regional 90%, the EEO to 15% of equal employment. We haven't specifically pulled the contracts to identify which parts of the construction are going to cover that, but we will be assured to make sure we cover everything to make sure everybody's happy.
And that would apply also to the storefronts and the small businesses?
Whatever it needs to do. That question throws me a little bit. If that applying to the current tenants, you're saying?
No,
within the build.
Construction. Yeah.
In the construction, of course.
Of course.
Yes, that will apply.
Okay.
That's correct. So the community commitments that we're discussing right now that have been selected as part of the framework scoring within the application on page 17, those percentages that Pat just spoke to are for the construction portion only. They would not be applied to the FTE full-time equivalent employees associated with the retail space. or the residential space for that matter.
Thank you, Andy.
Chair, I'm not an official member of the committee, but if you would indulge me a question while we
Please.
have the applicant here.
Yes.
Thank you. Just checking in as to whether or not there's any historical properties that we're dealing with here, and what are the ages of the buildings roughly that we're demoing?
Yeah, nothing has been identified as historical. Again, we've been approved through planning, and nothing of that nature has come up. The buildings range probably, I don't have exact sources of construction dates of when they were built, but from my history of all the rest of the stuff I've bought in the area, they're probably in that 1920s to 40s.
Okay, great. And response from the neighborhood association?
Well, we have, the neighborhood association's been great. We have a letter of support. We, again, because the project stalled for a little while, we spoke to them just a couple weeks ago. They gave us an updated letter of support, still consistent. You know, we're excited with that. We brought the neighborhood association, we gathered with them over at Sienna, and they actually helped us name the project. So
great. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
I do. And Pat, if whether it's you or Andy, could one of you provide the committee with just a quick overview of the ask in front of the group?
Prefer it be you, Andy, so I don't spill over this.
Sure. And the ask, so to speak, is fully represented in the application that was disseminated to the committee and board members prior to this meeting. The ask is for the community commitment framework abatement schedule for projects with an assessed value per unit of over $100,000, which this project does, based on the letter that was received from the City of Albany Assessor's Office. The improved assessed value per unit is estimated to be $102,222. However, there is a requested deviation in the base assessed value. As per the framework, the base assessed value is either the higher of the current assessed value or the purchase price. The current assessed value is 1.179 million, and the purchase price was 1.85 million. And the applicant has requested the base assessed value be 1.46 million. Pat, and I'll let you speak to why that is. And as a result of that, we will be requesting the committee give staff permission to solicit bids from our pre-approved list of third-party consultants that will be examining the reasonableness of that request and that deviation.
Pat?
Yeah, okay. So the request is, we've done our best to ask only what we feel is necessary. What we did, what we actually supplied you guys with, and plan on supplying some additional documentation that we've reached out to some realtors in the area, but we provided some MLS spreadsheets of other similar houses that have been purchased in the recent years and what they typically go for. You know, trying to do apples for apples with what they went for and everything else. So in saying that, when people realized I was trying to buy land and stuff, that to purchase their properties, it wasn't like I could just get regular asking price. There was people wanted a little more. They understood there was an opportunity there, and you know, I spent on the one, it was an incomplete house that I couldn't even fully rent. I spent $255,000 on Quail Street there, in one of those houses that you just saw, and others in the high 170s. Those houses would probably sell for the 110 to 140 area, probably lower than 140 typically, and maybe even lower than 110. I'm trying to be reasonable here. That's where my ask is kind of coming from, is just because I overpaid to make this project happen, and I don't necessarily want to be necessarily penalized for, you know, what I feel is a great opportunity for the city, as well as us, to make something special happen there.
Thank you, Pat.
Yes, hello, this is Anthony. I just have one question pertaining to the commercial space. You mentioned that I believe there were 2 commercial spaces, and then you mentioned a cafe and a small retail. Do you have any verbal commitments or had any conversations as to what type of businesses you think would be good fit for the both of those spaces?
Yeah, I have had multiple conversations actually, and again, because of everything that's happened over the past year and a half, COVID and everything else. Nobody is locked in with a letter of intent at the moment. However, I've had recent conversations even this week speaking to a tenant that does have still the desire to put those words exactly were from them with the retail space or restaurant. They're still going back and forth, and they have considerations. Ideally, they would like to monopolize it and take both spaces, but I've had other conversations with coffee house type places. So again, there is no letters of intent at this time. I do look to pursue once we get a little more traction here and see where this is going. I think we're at that point where we can probably lock somebody in sooner than later.
Okay, thank you, Pat.
Sure.
Okay, with that, I'd like to move forward with our next item of business. The project is 1415 Washington Property LLC. Andy?
Thank you, Tracy. I'll note that the project applicant is here with us today, and they will be further introducing this project in detail. This project involves the new construction of a student housing complex at 1415 Washington Avenue. With that, I see Mr. Brick is with us and Mr. Podob, and I will turn the floor over to them.
Hi, can everybody hear me okay?
We can.
Yes.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us. I'm Andy Brick with Donald Z's law firm here in Albany, and we're pleased to present our client's project, which is proposed at 1415 Washington Avenue. It is a proposed private student dormitory to be located at 1415 Washington with 560 plus or minus beds, 240 units, and 207 parking spaces under a 5-story structure. The project would involve the demolition of the existing Crest Hill Suites hotel that is currently on the property. And we are currently seeking site plan approval and demolition approval from the Planning Commission. We need one variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals that they had approved, but they need to revote to reapprove because of seeker process reasons. But we anticipate we'll be receiving that. And we think it's a viable project in the MUCU, the Mixed Use Community Urban Zoning District in which it's located. It's a permitted use. We are, as part of our application, committing to various community commitments, including NWBE, DBE, EEO workforce utilization, City of Albany labor to be used, and apprenticeship programs to be utilized as well. Our ask is for a 15-year community commitment pilot with a per unit assessed value between $70,000 and $79,000, which is slightly less than the policy that you adopted over the summer for student housing projects, which I believe was in the 80 to 89 range, or was slightly lower than that. But we are seeking that 15-year pilot along with mortgage exemption as well as sales tax exemption. And with that brief overview, I turn it over and introduce you to Evan Podob of Scenic Investment and the 1415 Washington Property LLC, because he has the ability, unlike myself, to share screens and he can show you some renderings.
You're being modest, Andy. I know that if it came to a pinch, you could definitely share your screen. So thank you very much for having us this afternoon. We greatly appreciate the ability to come before the IDA to discuss 1415 Washington. In addition to myself, we have our key team members of the 1415 Washington team with us. My partner, Michael, at Scenic Investments, Michael Pullman. We have Dan Hirschberg from Hirschberg and Hirschberg. We have Dennis Raguso and Matt Tyler from SRA. And of course, Andy Brick from Donald Z PC. This is a project that's actually close to my heart. I'm actually an alumni of the university. I graduated in 2004. I truly believe that my time at the school set me up for professional success, and I've always dreamed of coming back to be able to do so for others. The project upholds our belief in the school, in the community, both in the short term and the long term. We see great things ahead for Albany and hope to be a part of that with this project. This project is representative of all scenic investment projects. Our buildings seek to provide an authentic, high-quality living experience that promotes a sense of belonging and community among our residents. Our commitment to superior design provides natural and programmed opportunities for people to congregate together, spark connections and friendships that are rooted within the property, and ultimately instills in our residents a love for where they live. Give me a second, sorry. The project, as Andy just mentioned, is approximately 240 units with about 560 student beds. We have a healthy mix of indoor and outdoor amenity spaces for our residents, including about 8,000 square feet of outdoor community courtyard / amphitheater and an 8,300 square foot plaza. We also have bike storage both in and outside. And we also have areas for first-class fitness, entertainment, and most importantly for the studious amongst us, we have private study rooms so students can actually get outside of their units and not have to go to the library if not necessary. We've looked at many towns throughout the United States before we decided to pursue 1415 Washington. One of the biggest challenges facing development today is the high cost of construction. The ability to participate in programs that the IDA offers is very appealing and makes this project financially feasible. We greatly appreciate these programs and are committed to satisfying the requirements that Andy Brick just mentioned as part of the program. I'll take you through the renderings of the project in a moment, but wanted to clarify one item. We know that the IDA has asked for a term sheet from a prospective lender. We have not provided one because we're just a bit early in the process. I want to be clear that we're not worried about the ability to secure financing for the project. Part of the financing process is having the necessary approvals to move ahead and to have the incentives locked in that we're discussing this afternoon. We use Ackman Ziff out of New York City for all of our financing, whether we're looking for financing for places like Albany, Denver, or Nashville. We have had soft conversations on this project, but financing truly depends on these approvals. But I want to be clear again that when the time comes for financing, we do not expect it to be an issue. Let me share my screen and I will show you some of these renderings. Can you see my screen?
Ken?
Yes.
I'm just going to go into display mode here. Hold on. Okay. This is an aerial shot of the proposed design right now. This is obviously the university across the street. This is our site, 1415 Washington.
Did the screen go black for anyone else?
Yes.
Evan, I think the screen's black.
Green's black.
Green's black.
Okay, hold on one second, sorry. Here, I made fun of Andy Brick and I'm having my own troubles here. Can you see the screen now?
We've got it back.
Okay, I guess when it went into presentation mode, it for some reason, it went dark. Can you still see it?
We can.
Okay, Let me go back up first. Okay, this is an aerial shot. This is obviously the university and Collins Circle right here. This is a shot of our building across the street. You have two buildings that are connected through a bridge, which on either side of the bridge, you have that outdoor area that I was talking about. This is a shot as you drive up Washington Avenue. This is what you'll see. We are not changing the ingress or egress to the site itself, leaving that in place. This is the large front door here where we expect residents and prospective residents to come in and sign leases. This is a shot of one of those interior areas. We expect students to be using this at all times of the year. Whether it's the nice weather in the summertime or the spring, or even on a day like today. We'll obviously provide outdoor heaters and other stuff that makes it more enjoyable. But we expect students to congregate here and to play sports and maybe do some outdoor studying and just sort of gather as a community. And hopefully we'll be way past COVID at that point. So unfortunately, we did not have anyone with masks on today in these renderings, but with the hope that going forward very soon, we will not have to wear masks outside. This is a shot of the back of the building. And this once again highlights the other area that's on the other side of that connector bridge. There will be 2 entrances to the parking lot, which we intend to screen and look like the rest of the building. This is a shot just looking into the distance. We have a great set of trees here, and this is just further sort of illuminating our design, which, I can only take partial credit for. The architects at SRA are first class and have really been a great partner in putting this project together. This is a shot from the highway, and that concludes our renderings. We're available to answer questions.
Thank you. Very interesting design, for sure. Very creative.
Thank you. The site itself is a little oddly shaped. It's a little kind of like a slice of pizza. So, again, I'll highlight, if anyone's looking for an architect, SRA is very talented and helped us, work out some of the constraints of the site into something that we feel really great about.
Any other questions of the applicant at this time?
Yes, please. On the application, you have listed 11 existing full-time jobs and 8 full-time jobs expected to be created. Are those 11 jobs currently Crest Hill Suite jobs, and do you intend to reemploy those people if that's the case?
And I'll answer that if it's okay, Susan. Those 11 are what Crest Hill Suites identified to us. The way we got to 11 is they identified 5 full-time and I believe 6 part-time. And at the point we requested, which was early December, what their employment situation was, they were currently closed as a hotel, but they were operating as a quarantine location for SUNY students. So that number is based upon the existing employment status as of that snapshot in December. And their numbers translated into the 11 FTE. We're proposing that we just don't have the ability to retain any of those jobs. They just wouldn't fit with our program. We will be providing 5 professional full-time jobs, which is set forth in the application. And then we anticipate 6 part-time, which would result in 5 FTE, which would be resident assistants, resident counselor type positions. But to provide a conservative estimate, we're only showing 8 just because we want to make sure we hit the milestone that we're promising you. But we anticipate there will be 1 or 2 more FTEs through the resident assistants once we're open and operating.
Okay, thank you. So we're looking at 8 full-time jobs.
Correct. We're anticipating at least 8 FTE. We're hoping to be higher, but we're showing we can do 8.
Okay, thank you. One other quick comment. As you know, we provided assistance for the Aspen just up the street from you. A major concern at that time was the students crossing that very busy Washington Avenue section to get to campus. You have an even more direct link to campus, and I don't know if you've encountered concerns about that already, or if you're working with traffic safety to ensure the safety of the students. That's been a continuing concern at the university, I know.
And we have actively been engaged in discussions with the city of Albany and Bill Trudeau at traffic safety we are going to be making some type of mitigation contribution to the amenities recommended by the pedestrian study that they conducted along Washington Ave. And we're currently in discussions upon what those improvements are going to be, but those discussions are ongoing. I think we will need to formalize those as part of any planning board approval process, but we absolutely will be contributing to or doing the actual construction of pedestrian improvements for this project.
Great. Yeah, keep us informed as to what sort of creative approaches might come with that. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely.
No, we hear your concern and we know it's something that needs to be addressed. And as Andy mentioned, we're in process now. But the safety of our students is paramount to us.
Excellent.
Thank you. Any other questions of the applicant at this time? Okay, thank you very much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. See you soon.
Okay, we'll move forward with our next item of new business, 413 North Pearl Street. Andy?
Thank you, Tracy. This project involves the redevelopment of the structure at 413 North Pearl Street into a mixed-use residential retail complex with approximately 80 apartments and just over 13,000 square feet of retail space. And with that, I will turn it over to the representatives from Redburn Development.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Andy. Did a great job summarizing. This is a run-of-the-mill Redburn historic renovation. We are done-ish in downtown Albany and ready to shift gears. So the major first shifting of that gear is into the warehouse district. We are purchasing this building from the current owner, who is winding down operations now and shifting to a different place. And we were actually in this building a couple of years ago. Thought the price was a little too high, and so we passed on it at the time. I know you guys might have actually heard a previous project on the site. That project fell through, and when it fell through, we jumped in to pick it up. So as Andy said, 80 apartments, and then about 13,000 square feet of retail space, or I guess it's going to be more commercial space. We're confident in the apartment market in that neighborhood, despite the starts and stops that have existed there. I think the commercial space is more complicated. We have kind of taken it into our purview to figure out how we can introduce more uses into the neighborhood that aren't revolving around food or consuming alcohol. I think it'd be really great to shift to a neighborhood vibe rather than just full on bars and restaurants. Nothing wrong with that. It's great leaping off point, but to really drive economic development there, we need more. From your perspective, we are only seeking a sales tax exemption and a mortgage recording tax exemption. We are going to attempt to use the 485A program here. I believe it will be the first project that you've seen that will utilize the 485A under the new rules. The really interesting check mark there now is a 15% utilization of commercial square feet inside of it. Whether we want to call it good fortune or dumb luck, the commercial space is 15.02% of the building. So dumb luck. And that's what we're going to attempt to do. That's my overview. Sorry if I talk too fast.
No, thank you, Jeff. Your application, there were some renderings there as well. I appreciate your continued investment in the city and now your move into the warehouse district. It's a big building for sure. So I appreciate it very much.
It's a beautiful building, actually. It's got a lot of, unlike some of the stuff we just did in downtown Albany, it has a fabric inside historically that is still there. So we'll be able to make really great use of it. I think it's going to be an absolutely stunning project when we're done.
Did I see in the designs of the apartments that the bedrooms are actually interior?
Most of the time, I shouldn't say most of the time. One of the strategies that we utilize, Tracy, to our advantage is using the exterior light into a lot of the primary living spaces and not sleeping spaces.
Yeah.
This is something that I have personally evolved on from wanting to murder my partners to actually agreeing with them. The younger crowd that we tend to lease to prefers that they're off of the street and less noise. So whereas I'm continuing to sleep with my windows open through the winter because I'm an insane person, a lot of our tenants actually like the fact that the bedrooms are removed from the street and are quieter.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
So we end up accomplishing that by using transom light. So at the NIC, Joe is on the call with me. Joe, do we know how many units at the NIC actually have their bedrooms offset from the street? I would say it's probably in the neighborhood of 65 to 70 of the units have the bedrooms off of the actual exterior windows.
Yeah, I don't have the exact number, but I would say it's a majority of the 132.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see those when I toured. I saw a few of them anyway. Very interesting designs.
I hate them, Tracy, but everyone seems to love them.
Yeah. And this will be an historic tax credit project too?
Will be a historic tax credit deal, yes. We already have our part 1 approved by SHPO, and we are in the process of getting the part 2 done now.
Excellent.
I think we'll be financing this through CPC as well.
I saw that. Yeah. Any other questions for the applicant, for Jeff? Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. See you soon.
And for the board and committee members, we do appreciate that you had more than 200 pages of materials to get through for the meeting today. So over the next several weeks, as you do start to digest the details of the project, as questions do come to mind, or if you'd like us to look for any clarification on any of the materials, please reach out directly. We'll get as much from the applicants as we can, and we'll continue our analysis to be prepped for the next phase.
How about a paper allowance?
You actually print all this?
Excuse me?
So actually on that point, under normal circumstances, when we are in the room, we do print packets for anyone who would like them. And so if you would like a printed copy of anything, we can accommodate that here and get that to you prior to the meeting, if that would be helpful.
Very helpful.
I see 2 yeses for sure on that. Anyone else, please just email us and we'll be able to accommodate that in-house.
All right.
There you go, Lloyd.
I have my trusty red pen to go through stuff that helps me.
Sounds good. Okay,
Thank you.
We're gonna move forward now with our next agenda item, the REP LLC, and I'm gonna have Joe Scott just to refresh our memories on why this action was necessary.
Happy to do so, Chair. I'll first check with the staff to see if they wanted to do a brief intro, but I'm happy to take this.
Go ahead.
You'll recall at the last IDA meeting, we had reviewed this matter. There was a request from the rep for the IDA to approve the signing of a mortgage. At that time, there was the understanding on the part of the rep that due to the state involvement in the mortgage financing, that there was no need for the IDA to grant a mortgage recording tax exemption. So accordingly, we so indicated in the resolution. What happened subsequent to our IDA meeting was that on further discussion with the state and the structuring of that mortgage, there was in fact a need by the IDA to grant a mortgage recording tax exemption in order to assist the rep in avoiding the payment of that mortgage recording tax. We so restructured the documents, and what we're asking for here is a ratification by the IDA for that structuring. The original project contemplated a mortgage recording tax exemption, and the amount of the mortgage recording tax exemption is at a certain level, and the amount actually being used, including the amount involving this mortgage, is within that limit. So it all fits within our documentation. What we're doing here is just cleaning up the actual request by the rep to reflect accurately that they did need the IDA's assistance with the mortgage recording tax. So for consideration at the meeting next week, there will be a resolution correcting, if you will, the request by the rep with respect to the mortgage recording tax exemption. And with that, I'll open it up for any comments or questions.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, with that, I'm just looking for a positive recommendation to the board for approval.
I'll make the motion.
Lee, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Darius is still with us.
I am.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We'll move this to the board. Thank you. The next two items, the property acquisition disposition report, annual investment report. Andy?
Thanks, Tracy. I'm gonna turn this over to Mark to go over these.
Mark, okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So annually, the agency has to report the real property of the agency. As of December 31st, the agency had owned no real property.
Thank you.
And then the second item is the annual investment report, which needs to be distributed yearly. So with the agency, there's only bank accounts, a checking account and a savings account. So with that, the agency had $2.86 or $2.87 million on deposit at Community Bank. One thing of note, interest income was less in 2020. Around March, the interest rates started to go down through the year. So that is primarily why the interest is lower in 2020 versus 2019. And of note, Teal Becker, as part of the 2020 financial audit, will audit the balances of the agency depository accounts. And we expect this to be done and completed in March of 2021.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions? Okay, with that, we are going to just jump over Liberty Park right now and move into other business. Sarah has a few updates for us, and then we'll be excusing staff.
Great, thanks, Tracy. First, I want to share some stunningly, amazingly good news. If you hadn't tuned in to the governor's part 3 of the State of the State address today, he did make the announcement that the Port of Albany will receive a portion of the contract for offshore wind for New York State. That project is coming here. It's amazing. We don't have details yet specifically to it, but we have been prepping with the Port of Albany for involvement. However, we as an agency and as Capitalize Albany as an economic development group as well can be of assistance to that project, particularly in the workforce development role, however we can assist, and we've been working through that as a group, as you all have been involved with. So more stunning news on that to come, I'm sure, but that was today's big breaking item that that everyone should be cheering on for sure, as we certainly are. So that is point 1. Just a couple of other quick agency update mentions. The 485A was mentioned earlier by Jeff at Redburn. We have had our eyes on that. That legislation did change. And so as we look to our documents, we'll look at what that means for projects coming forward through. It will make it more difficult for local projects that are converting property to use the 485A as opposed to coming through the Industrial Development Agency. It becomes more restrictive on the project and property usage there. So we've got our eyes on that. And then I did want to note that the New York State Economic Development Council conference is next week, the 20th and 21st. Is that next week? Yes. So that comes up every year. We've had significant board participation as well as staff participation in that annually. Obviously, it'll be hosted virtually this year. And as budgeted by the agency, we do anticipate that the City of Albany Industrial Development Agency would sponsor that event. That's a $1,500 item that has been budgeted. And if there are no objections to that, we're going to go ahead and move forward with that sponsorship. If anyone would like to attend, please let me know or someone else on the staff, and we'll do a bulk registration to take advantage of a better rate. That conference does go over some great compliance details. It has economic development best practices included, and we'll also be showcasing the grant program that the IDA made available this past year during the program as well. So the,
Excuse me, can you send a link?
We will.
Information, thank you.
I'm assuming, is that going to be virtual, Sarah?
It will be.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Okay.
I might be able to do it this time.
Great. We'll send it around. Okay, and then under compliance update, we did receive, albeit off normal schedule, we did receive the OSC's annual questions that they have related to our annual report for the previous year. There were probably more questions than usual, and the depth of them were a little bit deeper than usual, so we're working through those now. We anticipate to have the responses back in mid-February to the OSC. Mark's been in contact with the representative from the comptroller's office. They're happy with that timeframe, and Joe Scott's helping us to ensure that they're detailed and thorough responses that meet legal tests as well, to be able to get back to them. And finally, we are in compliance season. We are fully deep into compliance world now, getting ready for that annual report that's due at the end of March. So you'll start to see some of those pieces come through, and we'll be gearing you up both at the Finance Committee and the full board for that project by project review that we do as a group.
Doesn't seem like it's possible. It's time to do that again.
I know.
Well, I know it's a lot of work, but very important work for sure. Anything else, Sarah?
That's it.
Okay, with that, we will say goodbye to
Tracy, before, I've got one quick question. As I was reviewing some of the minutes, did we ever go and get our permanent reauthorization from the Common Council for the CRC, or are we still looking at that? I know we had discussed it months and months ago, but I know everybody's been busy, and COVID and Zoom has changed everything, so wasn't sure where we stood on that.
Sure, I can take that. When we had gone to them for that, they had expressed the reluctance to do that in a Zoom format, that they would rather wait until everyone was back in person. So we have not gone back for permanent reauthorization yet. We're unfortunately still in that quick sunset timeframe, needing to go back for approval. But it is certainly staff's preference to be able to have that be a permanent authorization. We know it's the will of the board as well. So we'll pursue that as we're able with the council.
No problem at all. Thank you.
Sarah. Okay, we'll see you guys next week.
Great. I'll just note our disclosure again that is on record as we move forward with Susan making the same disclosure with the relationship with Capitalize Albany. So thanks, everyone. Have a good week.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Great job, staff.
Okay, so with that, we're going to move forward with discussion of the Liberty Park project. I'm going to turn this over to Joe Scott for the initial comments. Joe?
Thank you, Chair. And this meeting has been long, and we appreciate everyone's patience. As part of the Liberty Park matter, we are moving forward and have action items, proposed action items for consideration by the full board at the meeting next Thursday. In discussing this with the chair, we wanted to make sure that the board members had plenty of time to look at materials, consider materials, and also, perhaps most importantly, raise questions with your legal team. I've got my partners, Chuck Malcolm and Dick Weiss, on the call also, so they're here available to ask or to answer questions. The materials that we distributed to you included the action items, a finding statement with respect to the condemnation action, and a seeker finding statement. And then also it included a legal memorandum that we prepared at the request of the chair, addressing the various matters raised in the public hearing that was held in November. And so my suggestion is that we're here available to talk to you in open session about the finding statement and the seeker statement. And then if you want to review the legal memorandum, which is attorney-client privilege and provides you with legal advice, we can go into executive session to get the advice of counsel on that matter and to discuss related issues with respect to the memorandum. So with that, Chair, I'll pass it back to you for the pleasure of the board with respect to whether they want to go through the finding statements. I've got Chuck here who can run us through those two documents in summary fashion to give the board comfort as to what exactly is described in those documents. And then if it's the pleasure of the board to go in executive session, we can do that. And Chair, you're muted.
Relative to the findings statements, obviously those have been disseminated to the board, as you've indicated. They're on our website as well. I know that we've all read them. Would the board members like a quick overview of those statements as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's have a brief overview of those statements and what the proposed action is, Joe.
Will do.
Relative
Chuck,
to
would you?
those, I know we're not actually taking action today, but let's start with that, Joe. And then I would like us to go into executive session, please.
Will do. So Chuck, would you mind leading us through a discussion on the condemnation findings with a summary and an explanation of how that fits into the process?
Sure. So let me start with the seeker determination. This is an action that's subject to the State Environmental Quality Review Act. The IDA is acting as the agency that has to make the determination here. It's an unlisted action. There are no other agencies identified as making a determination with respect to this acquisition. Thus, it falls to the IDA to make that determination. In doing so, a part 1 of the environmental assessment form was prepared. That is included in the public hearing record. That is kind of a description of the action in general terms that allows the agency to make a determination relative to the impacts on the environment. Included in the materials today are proposed responses to parts 2 and 3 of the environmental assessment form. Those forms help you go through the criteria for determining significance of the action set forth in the seeker regulations. There's different criteria set forth in 617.7. Those are proposed to be answered as indicated, that there will be no significant adverse impacts on the environment as the result of the acquisition. The seeker regulations also require that determination of significance be in a written form, setting forth the reasoned elaboration for the basis for the agency's determination. So the document that is entitled SECRA Negative Declaration is that written reasoned elaboration explaining the IDA's basis for making this determination. And so this one's a little bit more involved because as we set forth in the description of the action, the seeker review and the reason supporting the determination, the seeker review deals with a circumstance where all the details of the redevelopment proposal are not set in stone. So you're reviewing a matter at the preliminary stage. And here the IDA is acquiring the real property pursuant to the eminent domain procedure law. And we also included in the materials a case that just recently came out from the 4th Department Appellate Division back in November that highlighted this approach as being appropriate. And that also follows the 3rd Department case that we referenced in the negative declaration, the Adirondack Historical Association. So the negative declaration is just a more fulsome discussion of the individual impact areas that are identified in the parts 2 and 3 of the environmental assessment form with a fleshed out rationale for the negative declaration. And this is obviously subject to the full board's review, evaluation, concurrence, and any changes or modifications that the board would want to make in advance of making that determination. So the seeker, once the seeker negative declaration is done, the agency can then move forward with consideration of the determination and findings with respect to the acquisition of the property under the eminent domain procedure law. This process is governed by Article 2 That is the provision under which we held the public hearing on December 9th. To move forward with the acquisition, the statute requires the agency to make specific findings. Those factors that the agency has to address are set forth in Article 2. So if you take a look at the document entitled Determination and Findings, Liberty Park Acquisition, the determination and findings are set out, and the document is broken up, starting with an introduction, but broken up discussing each of the required elements that the statute requires. So after the introduction and the basic background of the site and the existing conditions of the area and the project itself, the public use, benefit, or purpose to be served by the public project is discussed, as are the approximate locations and the reasons this location was selected, along with maps identifying the area and adjacent parcels. The general effect on the environment, obviously we have the separate document for the negative declaration, which is referenced here, but also this section requires a discussion on the general effect of the proposal on the residents of the locality, in addition to the environmental factors. So that's discussed. And then other factors that the agency considers relevant. And from the public hearing, there were issues raised that we have proposed addressing in this draft for the agency's consideration, as well as a discussion generally of some of the planning documents discussing this particular area and its importance that were referenced in the public hearing materials. The second part of that is a synopsis. The synopsis is statutorily required to be prepared and mailed to the property owner and also published in the paper. So we thought the appropriate thing to do was to put the synopsis itself before the board so that the board could consider both of them together. And the proposed action would be in that order: to make the seeker determination and to evaluate whether to move forward with the determination and findings, whether to make modifications to it, whether to entertain any further revisions, comments, questions that the agency would have.
Thank you, Chuck. Do any of the members have any questions? I'll push it back to you, Chair.
Sorry about that. I don't have any questions of myself at this point. Do any other board members have questions with specific reference to these findings?
I do not myself.
I don't have any questions. I appreciate the level of detail that went into this, though.
Excuse me, but that's probably what I was going to say as well. I did have questions in the beginning, as most of you know. But this information, although voluminous, was very, very helpful in terms of putting it in perspective. There are a number of ideas that I had that were resolved by this information, and the detail of it made it a little easier for me to be comfortable. I was thinking maybe it was that I wasn't involved at an earlier stage in it or whatever, but this information has made me more comfortable, at least in terms of understanding what your process is. And in particular with respect to this project, which I'm assuming is not a normal operation of the IDA. So I want to thank you for that. I mean, I had questions about it. I made it clear that I did. And it was responded to by Joe and other people very, very professionally. And I'm very thankful for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Stewart, we appreciate that. Obviously, we're treating this very seriously as your counsel. This is a significant step by the IDA, a condemnation proceeding. We've been in constant contact with the chair because she has made it clear to us that we need to be very precise and detailed as we move along the process. And with that, Chair, I'll pass it back to you. You had asked us to put together that legal memorandum, which
Yes.
addresses some legal questions. And again, that's appropriate for executive session under the advice of counsel provision. And so if you want to have a discussion on that, we would recommend that we go into executive session for the purpose of getting the advice of counsel on a legal matter.
I would just say that I feel very comfortable with the legal rationale behind this, and I'll make the motion to go into executive session if we so choose.
I'll second that.
All right, Darius and Lee, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, let's go into executive session, please.
So Chair, before we start, let me just get confirmation from May, even though it does appear that we're good here, that we're recording and that we're on YouTube. May,
Yes.
just let us know when we're ready to go.
We're ready.
Thank you.
Thank you, May. Yes, our executive session has ended. Thank you to those who were being patient. No action was taken in executive session, but we would like to move forward with some items to the full board next week. We'll have an overview of that. Scott, Chuck, please.
Yes, Chair. In line with the prior discussion on the seeker findings and the determination and findings that I reviewed, the items for the full board's consideration would be the determination of significance under seeker and the issuance of a negative declaration as proposed, and the adoption of the determination and findings pursuant to Article 2 of the eminent domain procedure law.
Should I take a motion on that, Chuck?
Yes.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Darius,
Second.
was that Lee?
That was Tony.
Tony, thank you, Tony. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Tony's a member of the Finance Committee?
He is not.
No, that's right. Okay, I'll make the second.
Thank you, Darius.
Nice catch.
Well,
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry, I thought Darius made the initial motion.
He did.
He did.
I did, seconded.
And Lee will second it.
Okay, legal second, got it.
And everyone's in favor?
Aye.
No.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, and anything else? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Darius. A second?
Second.
Second? Who, is that Lee or Tony?
Lee again.
Lee? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I hope not. Okay, thank you. See you guys next week.
Thank you,
All right,
everyone.
everyone.
Okay.
Thank you, Tracy.